Bonjour, mon ami de la YouTube. Um, Despite the poor karaoke track, I've been studying French on Duolingo for 180 days now. I just checked my streak. Uh, so yeah, I just wanted to make this video to go over what I've learned, what I do differently, and that sort of thing. So yeah, I was studying more or less about 20 minutes a day. I do about 4 to 5 lessons. They've kind of changed, they updated it about midway through. It went from being you could kind of do level something up once and then you could level it up 5 different times, but you only had to do it once to move on. They've since changed it, but regardless, the unit structure is still the same. So I do about 5 lessons a day. It'd be about 20 minutes. So not, I wasn't putting a lot of effort in, but mon français est en pied bien. So it's been pretty good. Some of my friends who are native French speakers, well, only one of them, said my accent's pretty good. I don't know if it's that great. I probably can't. I found Duolingo is very, very helpful. In the past, I'd been studying Mandarin using Pimsleur, which is basically entirely an audio program. The guy will say something to you and he'll say, "You would like to ask Mrs. Chin on a date," or not on a date. That's the joke, is that it's because it was meant for businessmen in the 40s. So all the dialogue sounds like you're trying to cheat on your wife. But, you would like to ask Mrs. Chin to get a drink if she would like to drink tea. So you say, like, 你想要喝茶？茶？I forgot. It's been a while. 你想喝茶? Yeah, 你想喝茶? I think that's you want to drink tea. And then you'd repeat it. And that was very good. You'd remember a lot, but I found I wasn't able to listen very well and understand it. But I think that's just sort of, you're there, you're kind of nervous when you're talking to people. So that's sort of something you just have to get with practice. I found Duolingo to be very, very helpful. I've gotten into meditation a lot since then, so I have a lot more willpower. So I could do Dual. I feel like I could do Pimsleur now, and it would be a lot more helpful. I found I'd kind of drift off a lot. The lessons are like 30 minutes long, and they're from like almost the past century, so they're really, people's brains were different back then. They didn't have TikTok, so it was harder. It was easier to pay attention to stuff like that, but I feel like I could do it now. But Duolingo I found was incredible. It was really, really stimulating. You'd learn to read it, you'd learn to hear it, to speak it. It would actually have you speak it and tell you if you were doing it well or not. I'd highly, highly recommend Duolingo. I know people used to talk about it like in the language community, oh, it's so lame because they teach you these silly phrases like the polar bear ate a banana or something like that. But it's, at least for French, it's really, really good now. Like a lot of the phrases are pretty practical. I mean, I've been to France and you kind of get away with English, at least if you're in Paris, but I feel like I could definitely get around. I don't know, maybe if there's a place that doesn't speak English enough as much, like if I was in, I don't know, rural Senegal or something, I feel like I'd be okay. I'd be able to be like, Je vous vais à l'aéroport. Mon vol est uh, en juillet prochain. But the grammar's probably not right, but you could probably be like, okay, he needs to get the airport. His flight is tomorrow. Oh, le bus, c'est ici, en, 4 minuit. I don't know, something like that. You'd be able to get around a little bit. I'm trying to flex my French, and it's not going very well. What I would do, sorry, yeah. So needless to say, I'd be very happy with it. Highly recommend it, especially if you're not trying to be hardcore. I know I see a lot of the language people on here, and they're really, really into it, and they'll spend like an hour a day studying it and watching anime and but like watching anime in the language. I should clarify stuff like that to like really get deep into it. For me, I'd basically just listen to the music of Serge Gainsbourg, who's kind of the reason I was learning French. Other than that, and the occasional practicing with a native speaker, I'd basically just do Duolingo. A quick side note on practicing with language speakers: it seems like they've shut down italki for the free ones, which I used to use when I was studying Chinese 5 years ago, about 5 years ago. So the one I used was Hello Talk. I found it was pretty good, but it would be kind of difficult to schedule things. Like a lot of the time you'd meet with people and then they'd kind of like, no, like it sort of drained off. I was working with one woman in Senegal and it kind of dropped off. I think her French was a lot better than her English was much better than my French, so it wasn't a great deal. Another guy I was with, it was in Montreal. He moved to Montreal, but he studying with. and it just kind of stopped. It was very hard to plan stuff. I think that's just in general, but regardless, if you can, I would definitely recommend speaking with a native speaker. My mom knew some French from university and whatnot. I'm Canadian, so some of us are bilingual in it. I live in British Columbia, though, which, as given by the name, not a lot of French. So as a result of that, I'd practice with her every once in a while, and I found that to be very helpful. It really reinforces it, but I also found the benefit was pretty similar. If you're just sitting with yourself and you think, how can I say this in French? How can I do this? What I would do differently, and so I've done 180 days of French, and I already found myself forgetting some of the sentences because there's no spaced repetition system in Duolingo. If they added it, it would be the perfect app, like literally perfect. But basically, what spaced repetition is they've done studies. I don't remember the exact science, but there's basically an optimal time for you to review information to remember it. Like it was the first time you learn it, and then like 12 hours, then 24 hours, then 2 days, then it's something roughly like that. And then that helps you ingrain it better. As opposed to if you just did it 100 times in a row and left it, it would be better if it 10 times you did it 10 times at different paces. Like that would be yield a better result, is effectively the science. Anki does this. Anki is really good. That was the other way I'd study. It's a flashcard app, and you could load decks on of pre-made flashcards to learn it. But I found with that the pronunciation would never be good, and it was even more dry than Duolingo. And it's a very lifeless way to interact with the language. Like you're basically just remembering it. It doesn't really help you pronounce it, read it, write it, anything like that. Um, However, what I would do differently using Duolingo, and they even say this as a tip in it, for each lesson, I would write down every new word and phrase I learned, and then I would load that into Anki. And then in addition to Duolingo, I would also do Anki to help me really instill it. Like a few weeks ago, I learned how to say ask what time it is. I think it's quelle est l'heure est-il? Quelle est quelle heure est-il? I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Like 180 days, and I don't know how to ask what time it is, and I kind of forgot. And not to blame Duolingo, they're pretty good, and I love the memes they put out. But obviously nothing's perfect. Um, but yeah, I would do that. I would 100% load all the information I learned into Anki to really help develop it. Like my Chinese, I did Pimsleur, and Pimsleur sort of did spaced repetition. 和我会说一点儿普通话，我学习普通话很多昨天和我的普通话一点儿好。我的, oh, sorry, I won't do too much Chinese, but I was basically saying it's very poorly, but it's been a long time since I've done my Chinese and I still have it. I work at a Starbucks, and every once in a while, Chinese people will come in, and I'll talk to them a little bit in Chinese, and they'll go, "Oh yeah," and I'm surprised at how much I remembered. It's been 5 years since I've studied it at all, but you still remember it quite a bit, and that was because of the spaced repetition. It really, really it drills it in, and it's there forever. So I would recommend that, and I would also recommend being maybe instead of finding language partners, a lot of the time you can find people that will teach you a language, like on italki, for very cheap, like $3 or $5 an hour. So maybe if I'd have found a French teacher once a week and I'd invested, $3 or $5 a week to have them speak with me and go over it, I think that could have been very helpful. But at the very least, I would recommend finding a way to speak with a native speaker. Odds are, if you're learning a language, you might already know somebody who speaks that language, unless you're just like a big K-pop fan and you're trying to learn Korean, which I can't do it because I'm holding it. I was trying to do the Gangnam Style thing, the dance. But yeah, so that would be my summary of Duolingo. Duolingo is really good, and you should give it a shot. It's it's really good. Don't hate on it if you're like a nerd in the language community. Don't be a loser. Just go do it if you're not doing anything else. Um, Even if you're just like a normal person who's not a language learning nerd, like you should try it out. Give it 30 days and just do 3 lessons a day. It'll take you 10 minutes, and you'll be amazed at how much better you're getting at it. Um, and then what I would do if you're already doing Duolingo, try and speak with native speakers, maybe get a teacher for very cheap, or just do like a language exchange. Like I said, Hello Talk. You can find people on there. You just message a bunch. After one or two messages, just message them and be like, hey, yeah, let's, get on here and do a call and work on our language. And then I would also put it into a spaced repetition thing, Anki, Anki. You can download it on your phone or computer and put it all into the flashcard so you can really ingrain it. And I would say that would be probably the best thing that you could do. So yeah, make sure, I'd say the most important thing is don't be a hater. Don't be like Duolingo's lame, Duolingo's this. If you're already studying an hour a day and you're doing it properly, you're not using like a gamified app, sure, maybe you can kind of say that. Actually, no, you can't. Like, let people work up to what they need. This is getting kind of cynical. But yeah, work on Duolingo. If you're not doing anything, don't be too proud. This is something I had to learn. You just do what you can. Then once you get Duolingo under your belt, then you move up. Now that I've done Duolingo for 6 months and I've been meditating, so I have better willpower and concentration, now I can probably go back to Pimsleur. I can do some of the more better hardcore things. You know, it's like if you're going to the gym, you can't just start lifting 300 pounds. You got to work up to it. And that's kind of the same with anything in life. So yeah, I would encourage you, definitely give Duolingo a try. Yeah, you give it, 3 lessons a day for 30 days. Try that out and see what happens. This video is not sponsored, but I'd love it if it was. Until then, I'll see you guys next time.